Hello everyone, another Wednesday, another whiskey with me, Phil. Now this week we get onto something that, as I'm sure you all know, is very true to my heart. I'm a big bourbon fan, and this week we are talking about Jefferson's, specifically the Jefferson's Groth Reserve Cask finish. Now to tell you a little bit about Jefferson's and what they do, they're a distillery started in Kentucky by Trey and Chet Zoeller, who are a father-son business partner setup. And they essentially started kicking off things by buying loads of different well-aged and new stock from established bourbon distilleries. So think about all of the bourbon distilleries in America, be it Kentucky or the new stuff in New York and things in Colorado and all these kind of places. They probably buy some interesting stock off all of them. The Zoeller family have somewhat of an interesting and checkered past when it comes to making whiskey. Actually, it dates back to 1779. When one of their great relatives was arrested for illegal spirit production and selling of those spirits. So they have the idea of blending things and making spirit in their blood, as it were. Something that's quite interesting in terms of the history of American whiskey in general is the man whose name is on the bottle. Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, one of the early founders of the United States of America as it is now, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, one of the forefathers of modern America, and at one point one of their presidents. I'm not sure where in the list he came, but one of their very early presidents. And when America was established very early on as a country, Thomas Jefferson was this very free-spirited, free-thinking kind of guy, and it was always him versus a gentleman called Alexander Hamilton, who was George Washington's right-hand man, essentially. And Alexander Hamilton was all about, centralization of industry and making everything taxed and regulated. And when it came to really early spirit production in, from 1776 onward, Alexander Hamilton was like, we've got all this debt, we've just come out of a war of independence, we need to make some money, let's start taxing people who make all these spirits. And Thomas Jefferson was kind of the opposite of that. He was essentially like the first idea of, hipster culture and boutique little prestige distilleries and all that kind of thing. He kind of said, let people do what they want. Every farm should have a still on it. Everyone should be making spirit from the corn they've got left. Let's make an independent nation have independent thinking, and the ability to all these people to just do what they want, when they want, how they want, because we're a new country. Let's let people have fun. So they came to loggerheads at this, and you could argue that modern bourbon ideally is Jefferson's, the liquid, and then Alexander Hamilton is kind of the packaging, everything. You've got all these wonderful experimental distilleries doing the rounds in America now. It's all regulated and taxed and all that kind of thing. So eventually they both got their own way, in a sense. But yeah, so he adores it. He adorns it, I should say. His name is on the front of it. And he didn't really like whiskey in general, but you can imagine in the late part of the 1700s, early part of the 1800s, whiskey as we know it today probably it didn't have the quality. We can be pretty much assured of that. And it'd be like another sort of 30, 40 years into the 1800s before people like James Crowe and Dr. James Pepper and the idea of barrel maturation and sour mashing and all that kind of thing, before that even came into an idea. Thomas Jefferson didn't like whiskey before that point, probably didn't like it after that point, I'd imagine. He was more of a wine drinker. But getting onto the whiskey. So it's a blend of numerous different bourbons. It's not designated what. I'm sure if you email Jefferson's, they'll probably tell you. I haven't, but I probably will be doing in the future. And what they've done is they have taken aged Kentucky straight bourbon, so it's been in the barrel for at least 2 years, and they have put it into an ex-Groth cask wine barrel. Now, Groth wine, or the Groth vineyard, is something that I'm not familiar with. I've never tried a Cabernet Sauvignon from that vineyard. But it was the first distillery, it was the first vineyard that a gentleman called Robert Parker gave 100 out of 100 to. So, one of the greatest Cabernet, one of the greatest wine vineyards he's ever come across. And as a result, I think it's one of the Zoellers, I can't remember if it's Trey or Chet, one of them's a big wine buff. So he decided to, experiment with a little bit of this really amazing wine. And what they've done is they've taken the wine cask and they've taken the aged spirit, they put it straight into the wine barrel, and they put it in what they call a hot box, which is a stainless steel box which can get up to around 120 degrees in summer. anyone who's ever been to America, you know how intense the heat can get over there. And essentially, it sweats the wine out of the cask into the spirit. So it's cask influence as we know it, and it isn't at the same time. They're literally taking all of the sweated spirit or the wine out of the barrel into the cask. Is a much quicker way to get this big flavour profile. And as a result, we've ended up with this. It is a 45.1% natural coloured product. I'm not sure about the filtration level because it doesn't stay anywhere, so I don't know. And I believe this is batch number 1. Yeah, bottle number 4078, batch number 1. I bought it off auction because I was really intrigued by it. I remember when it launched, and I thought, that'd be pretty good. And now I finally got it, and as you can see, it's taken quite a hit. I've only had that for about 4 months-ish. Very Moorish. But we'll crack on with the review. So, we examine the colour of it. It's very Scotch-like in colour. It kind of reminds you of those really heavily sherry things like Glendronach and Dalmore. And it has that wonderful burnt copper, slightly autumnal tinge to it. There's your typical bourbon smells. There's vanilla, there's caramel, kind of desiccated coconut, a little bit of exotic fruit. But what the wine has done to this, it's given it such a huge rounded element of kind of forest fruits, blackberries and raspberries and all that kind of thing. Well, not necessarily forest fruit, more maybe winter fruit. So blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, just all these kind of wonderful, big, luxurious, spicy fruits. There's a big hit of menthol coming off it too. Whenever I smell bourbon, I always get menthol or eucalyptus or that kind of thing. But with this, I don't know if anyone's ever had, people in Britain will have had anyway, those Lockett sweets. They're like cough drops. And it's kind of like the blackcurrant versions of those. It's got that kind of a herbal menthol note thing going on with it. And then it's kind of wrapped up in these lovely layers of dark fruit. Essentially, it's like having it's like smelling a really good quality sherry whiskey from Scotland or Ireland or Japan. You get that wonderful hit of natural caramel and natural vanilla, and then a lot of big, heady, rich, dark fruit on top of it. Stunning, stunning nose. The initial arrival is quite spicy. It's almost like cayenne pepper spicy. It's got this wonderful exotic spice going on with it. Again, you really get taken over by that eucalyptus, minty, herbal, kind of medicinal mint note. And then just this explosion again of all those big fruits. This time it's more red currant and kind of pomegranate. Those kind of tiny little stone fruits. Apricots as well, a little bit of peach. Really kind of juicy, thick fruit. It's very, very appetizing. But it's not particularly Moorish. And I don't mean that in the sense that it's a bad whiskey, it's a lovely whiskey, but it's a very intense flavour. It's only 45.1%, it's not a big kind of heady, high alcohol beast. It's very subtle, it's very balanced, but the combination of those really rich, those naturally occurring bourbon flavours, mixed in with those really tannic, drying, and in this case extremely luxurious fruity notes that you get from really good quality red wine. It's complex, and it offers you quite a lot to think about. The finish itself, again, quite a lot of pepper. So as soon as it hits your tongue, you get the spice, and then that kind of makes way for that big hit of fruit, really wave of luxury, and then it pulls back in the pepper towards the end. And it's more white pepper. It's not very fragrant black pepper. It's a lot of spice. It's a very kind of intense style. I don't know if it's just because I've got quite low down in the bottle, and obviously there's a lot of oxygen in there mixed around. When I first opened it, it was all about those big red fruits, and they would just go on for days. The caramel and vanilla was really subdued by it, but down towards the end of it, the caramel and vanilla have taken more of a step forward, and the fruits, as I've just explained, are more of a mid-palate thing, and the spice is being much more dominant now. But you take two very intense barrel types like virgin oak and a big, robust Cabernet Sauvignon barrel, and you know it's going to give you quite a lot of tannic spice. I didn't think it would come out towards the end as much. I thought it'd be present from the start when I first opened it, but it really has come out towards the end of the bottle more so. Mouthfeel is very silky. And again, the finish, as I mentioned, there's quite a lot of spice, and there's that lasting note of like a herbal eucalyptus style thing. It's almost like the finish of having a mint julep. You get that combination of sweet medicinal mint and the attack of alcohol. It's good. It's a very good whiskey. I'm a big fan of experimental styles, and Jefferson's have been experimenting with stuff for ages. You know, they do the whole barrel aged at sea thing. They've got 2 barrels strapped to the back of a boat and it's sailing around the world. They've got a few more kind of limited edition things. They did a pre-bottled cocktail, which was pretty cool. That was in like a blackish bottle. And they do aged ryes, which I believe are sourced from Canada rather than America, or a little bit of both. But they're a cool little distillery. They really are. Well, not distillery, they're a cool blender. And they are something to keep an eye out for. You can get the regular one of like 35, 40 pounds, the regular standard Jefferson's, which is a very soft, sweet kind of Palmer Violet led whiskey. And then like the presidential ryes and all this kind of thing, they're not as easy to get hold of, but you can find them. But in terms of scoring this, I'm going to say, because it has changed so much, and when I first opened it, it was, you know, this big voluptuous red fruit kind of thing. I do miss that. I miss the start of the bottle quite a lot. Reviewing it to the point it's at now, I think it's 7.5, a 7.5 out of 10. I think that's fair. It's not particularly easy to find. It's not the most widely available product. This is a 75 cl bottle, so it's an American bottle. I don't know if they've ever done a 70 cl version, or if it ever is available in the UK or Europe as a whole. So you know, this was bought in America and then sold to me as a result of a Scottish auction site. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10. It's changed quite a lot, which is not disappointing, but you know, I prefer the start of the bottle rather than the end of it. Oxidization is always going to be a problem when you start to drink a whiskey. But it is a very interesting experimental product, and I look forward to seeing what Jefferson's do in the future. But yeah, Jefferson's Groth Reserve, good 7.5 out of 10. Very interesting whiskey, always something good to try, you know, experimenting with all these different types of cask. But yeah guys, I'll see you again next week. Thank you very much. Have a good day.